What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. I'm once again joined by Tyler. We're back for another video in our Mandalorian community series, a community series that airs every single Friday on our channel, leading to the Mandalorian releasing on Disney Plus Episode 1 on November 12th. So we're another week closer, and, last week we talked about Chewbacca. We talked about if Chewbacca could appear, whether it be a cameo, whether it would be a possibility to just include, other Star Wars characters, other just things in Star Wars in general into this show. And I think that, while this show isn't necessarily going for the let's just cram as much Star Wars nostalgia as we can, I do think, and like we talked about in the last video, there are smart ways to bring other characters, other just things in general, just as kind of light nods. Now, there's connections with Dave Filoni, with The Mandalorian, and also with, Star Wars Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, all these things, and a character that has been kind of consistent, obviously, in a lot of them, is Sabine. And we know that there has been talks, we're unsure if we can provide the article for you, but there were talks of him that he would like, to one day see some characters cross over or to get those kind of characters in there. There's characters that could totally make an appearance. There's characters that make a lot of sense. You could argue Ahsoka, and if you guys want us to make videos of that going forward, we could. We've talked about that, Tyler and I. But we want to talk about Sabine, why it makes quite actually a lot of bit of sense, not just because of Dave Filoni, but even just who Sabine is, time period-wise, it lines up. So I'm going to hand over to Tyler. And again, we're just talking about if it's possible. We're not, this is not a confirmation. Just kind of our general discussion. Of course, we would love to hear from you guys in the comments below. Do you think Sabine could be in it? Do you think another character could be in it? Let us know in the comments below. Tyler, what do you think?
So I have the article actually right here. I found it as Alex was talking. I swear I was paying attention. This is what Dave Filoni said. Having a character you wrote walk up and talk to you in full costume on a set that you imagined, that is a wonderful thing. I also want to say that The Mandalorian, because I didn't realize this, is set 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So that's kind of important just for talking about age, obviously, because we're talking about, Sabine in this video. There is another character that could be, that'll be another video. But here's the other thing that Dave Filoni said. I don't want to talk about anything that might be fun for people to discover. We do have conversations. Part of it's fun to see if we could merge the world of the original trilogy, the prequels, the sequels, the Clone Wars, and what's been considered canon up to this point, and what's been considered part of Legends. I think the show offers an opportunity to bring in all of those elements, so no matter what your flavor of Star Wars ice cream you like, there will be something to enjoy, but you're asking the right questions. So obviously, he mentioned the Clone Wars, and then he said, and what's been considered canon up to this point, Rebels is considered canon. So it's totally possible that Sabine, who is a Mandalorian, would be, and that is one of the characters that he created as he created Rebels. It's highly possible that Sabine could appear in The Mandalorian, Season 1. And it works for Sabine to be, to have a cameo or to be in The Mandalorian, even if it's a small role. The age works, and that's why I mentioned that 5 years. So The Mandalorian takes place 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and we know, obviously, that Rebels takes place right before A New Hope, but literally right before A New Hope. We know that in Star Wars Rebels, Leia was in it, obviously. I think it was Season 3 or 4. But in A New Hope, Leia is 18, so obviously she's younger. She's maybe 17 or 16 in Rebels. And we know that Sabine was 16 in Rebels. So Sabine is around the same age, around either a year or, the same age, a year or maybe 2 years less than Leia during the time of Rebels, because we don't really know exactly how close it is from the end of Rebels to the start of A New Hope. But what that means is that Sabine would she'd only be a couple years older, so they could easily get somebody who's in their either late 20s or early 30s to play the part of Sabine for The Mandalorian. That's extremely easy to do. There's very little aging that has to happen, for in the casting. You don't have to get anybody old and color their hair all weird colors. So it's actually very easy for them to do Sabine. And on top of, they already have a bunch, I assume, prop-wise, they already have a bunch of Mandalorian-type, armors and props. So it's probably very easy to change the mold a little bit for Sabine. So I think it makes a lot of sense that it would be the Sabine character. The timing fits, really like cost effective, because of the parts, the props, like I just said. That fits. I think it makes sense.
I agree. It really goes back to what we said last week in that, and like I said even, I don't think it's a show that is going to force the stuff down your throat, but when you can do it, why not? You can just do it. Chewie is super, super easy to put in there. Sabine would be, I think that's an extra layer for sure, because then that's kind of like, oh, and that's a very different character. I think that does open the door to characters like Ahsoka and really a lot of characters in that animated era to make their appearance elsewhere. It's a really good way of like even Dave Filoni said, like blending those all together and kind of, what would it be like if we saw somebody that we've only ever seen animated? What if they were in a live action, show that has the quality of a movie? What would that mean for the future of Star Wars even? So I think the long-term ramifications, there are some of them. So having Sabine in there, like Tyler said, makes sense. Age makes sense. It's not like she's going to be a 60-year-old woman. She can still be relatively young. She could realistically even be, we talked about with Chewie, more of like a cameo. He's not going to be like a main cast member of Season 2 or whatever. But Sabine, you could theoretically work that in there, especially if there's enough love for that character. If he feels like maybe he wants to tell more of her story, something like that could come about too, where, hey, if it makes sense, you don't force her in. For sure, you don't force her into the story because the purpose is on, this character that we see. But at the same time, if it works, if you can introduce her, she can be a cast member, why not take it? You could help the show in the moment, and also, like I said, like long term, this opens the door to like, okay, these characters aren't just sanctioned off, where they started. Ahsoka doesn't always just need to be animated. Maybe we could see her live action one day, and this really would be the first time that we get that. We've gotten small nods in The Last Jedi. Even we got nods to like ships that were in Rebel. So like, yeah, they exist, and they are starting to try and make it more of that blend just in the first place. But this would be the first main character, really would open the door, I think, for the future of Star Wars just in general. So I think it's a good idea. Again, I don't want them to force it. I don't want them to force Chewie. I wouldn't want them to force Sabine. I wouldn't want them to force Ahsoka. If it works, if it makes sense, you do it. And I think the long-term, like the positives of doing it, there's a lot of them, and it's not just for the Mandalorian show. I think you help the show in the short term as well. But I also think you really kind of paved the way for what you could see for the future of Star Wars as well. So guys, let us know in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think Sabine could appear in The Mandalorian, main cast, cameo, whatever? Is there any other characters you'd like to see appear in The Mandalorian? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, Podcast Now. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up. And again, these videos air every single Friday until the show comes out. Once the show comes out, we'll be talking about our plan of attack for just discussion on the show on each episode once the show starts coming out, once we know the kind of the air dates for these episodes. But very, very excited for this show. A new video for you guys next Friday, and we hope to see you all there.